Hey, everybody. Okay, we're going to talk about a murder of a 15-year-old boy. His name was Seth Tyler Jackson, and all of this happened, and it was gruesome. Now, Seth got murdered tragically on April 17th of 2011. A few months prior to his murder, this girl Amber and him started dating. Now, Amber was 15 at the time, but they broke up in a bitter breakup, and she started dating this 18-year-old kid. Now, I don't know what to tell you other than this 18-year-old boy, and I'm going to say boy because he's not a man. I don't care, regardless of the age. Now, he assumed that during the time that his little girlfriend Amber and this younger victim, who was Seth at the time, like I said, um, he assumed that Amber was abused by Seth, which started this back and forth bitter dispute of always threatening each other, that they were going to hurt each other, harm each other, murder each other. I mean, this went on for a while. While Amber and like four other victims or other suspects decided that they were going to lure Seth to her now boyfriend's house and teach him a lesson, basically. But it wasn't just to beat him up. This was to outright murder this boy. Only Seth didn't know that. Now, he did not feel right in text messages and in interrogations that I watched. They kind of thought that they got away with this, that they were going home, that they had done nothing wrong. But once you hear the brutality of this case, which I am going to tell you that this needs to be a warning that there are triggers in this, and that things could possibly be very bad and hard to hear. Now, Amber, yes, she was young at the time of this, but some of the other suspects in this were not. So they knew right from wrong. I think she knew right from wrong, but at the time, I don't think she cared. I think she was more worried about her then boyfriend Shane, who I wouldn't say lured her into do or made her do this, but he very much persuaded her into doing this. So what had happened is Amber contacted Seth through a phone call or messages or whatever you want to call it, decided that it would be in the best interest to make him believe that she wanted to get back together, so she wanted to meet up. At first, Seth was like very against it and was like, "No, I don't want to. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't sound safe." Excuse me, and kept saying things like, "We can meet somewhere else. I don't want to meet there or near there." But once she told her boyfriend that he was not falling for it, he was basically telling her, lay it on thicker. Make sure that he really, make him really believe that you want to get back with him. So she did. So against Seth's better judgment at the time, he did eventually go to this house. Now, the moment that he showed up, he was basically attacked. And this attacking went on for a while. He was beaten. He was degraded. He was belittled. He was shot. He still, after all of this stuff happened, he tried to get them, or he tried to leave. He tried to crawl out of the house and get away. Now, they still had the audacity to go after him. And when they did, they had someone hit him over the head with an axe handle. They put him in the bathtub. They shot him multiple more times, which, he eventually succumbed to his injuries. And then they decided, okay, well, now how do we get rid of the body? So they all got together and they put him in a sleeping bag because they didn't want to drag blood across the house. They lit a fire in their backyard and they put Seth's body on it. Now, this was severely, severely bad. They had no remorse during the time that they did this to this young boy. And they even, after burning his body, called the stepdad to two of these suspects and had him come over, help them remove the ashes by putting his ashes in 5-gallon paint buckets, drove to a quarry, and then threw the buckets into the water, trying to, get rid of every evidence that they could think of. So then they returned back to the house where this gruesome murder happened and went into the house, took bleach, and cleaned every inch of the house that could have had evidence of what had happened to try to get away with everything. Now, of course, that wasn't the actual end of the story. The parents knew that he was going to meet the ex-girlfriend. The parents had found text messages and evidence of where he was going, where he was supposed to be, when he was coming back, all of this stuff. Now, he did not return, so the parents ended up putting out a missing persons report on their son, which led them fairly quickly to all of the suspects who were later actually apprehended and taken into custody. Now, all of these suspects, most of them were underage, and they were either related, dating, best friends, whatever. They were saying that after they had gotten arrested, that Fargo was the main person that planned it. It was set up. Everything was his fault. Everything, went on because of him. And he made them do this and he made them participate, and they were all scared. And they all assumed because they were underage, they weren't going to get charged with nothing. Now, you have this young victim who did nothing wrong except live his life. You have another young victim that thought it would be okay to lure him to a home knowing that his life was going to end. You have other people that could have left but chose to stay. And they all thought, okay, we're going to get away with this. Now, in interrogation, they were all laughing and being like, oh, we're going home. We're not going to, what are you going to do after you get out of here? Literally thinking that they got away with murder. Once the younger teens figured out that they weren't going home, that they were being charged with murder, they kind of lost their cool because they had gotten caught and they didn't believe that they should be charged with all of this. Now, there was Michael, Amber, Kyle, Justin, Charlie, and James. James was the stepdad. Charlie was a 18-year-old girl. And then you have Justin, who was 20, Kyle, who was 16, Amber, who was 15, and Michael, who was 18. Now, all of these people nobody tried to help. Eventually, it carried on and carried on. Now, Most of them got either charged with life in prison, murder after, the stepdad got, could have had a life sentence because of helping. It was accessory after the fact. He ended up being sentenced to 30 years in prison. And then you had the boyfriend who got sentenced to the death penalty. You had the two young girls that ended up having life sentences without the possibility of parole, but then Florida changed the statute, so they had to give them life sentences with the possibility of parole after 25 years because they had ended up going and trying to appeal their charges after a new thing came out. And then the other ones, of course, you had the other suspects had life with possibility of parole. Now, of course, after all of this was said and done, the main culprit, I guess you want to say, Michael Bargo, had tried to file an appeal against his involvement, saying that he wasn't the person that done all this. He wasn't the person that set anything up. He was clear of all that, and that he should have his sentencing changed as well. But nobody bought it, so he's still on death row as of now in this case. And I don't think that they're actually going to leave him. Now, one of the other victims did get her sentence reduced to 10 years, and she was actually already out of prison. I don't see any stipulations on her, though, other than she served her 10, she's done, she's free, she's clear. Other than the murder being on her record, I'm guessing. But every appeal that has happened has been either changed just very lightly or given new sentencing, or they've kind of come around where they could still serve life because of their ages or whatever. But I don't know. I think this case was very brutal. I think that most of the jurors on this case had a very hard time with these sentences and these deaths and all. Now, like I was saying, this case was a very hard one to watch and listen to. They do have the interrogations up of these of these suspects, and I think that it's worth the watch too, so that way you kind of get a better scene of how they're mentally are with each other. Because in one room, they're all joking and laughing like they got, like they're having fun. And they did nothing wrong. So I want y'all to go watch it, and I hope you'll have a good night.